Was Dom right for taking Spencer Strider in the first round? We're going to talk about that and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane, doing the flipsy doosey, reading the intro for you, here with my co-host Dominic Martino. We're gonna be here all day long breaking down mock drafts, and if you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below, subscribing to the channel, and you'll get a notification every time you drop a new episode. Also, please, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating and review if possible. It really goes a long way with helping out the podcast. And since you're doing that, you might as well join the subtext and then send us a screenshot of that, and it'll get you an entry to get into the lottery to get a spot in our listener league that we're going to be announcing on the 22nd. So, with that being said, guys, I got something awesome for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create a new account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. And we got a good one today, guys. Dom did a mock draft, and we've been breaking down mine for the last couple weeks, and Dom's been tearing me a new one. And now it's time for me to flip the script and tear down his 5x5 head-to-head roto draft, where he decided to go pitcher in the first round. And Dom, explain yourself.
Yeah, so, I think we're up to the 5th week in a row doing mock draft Mondays. Did it last year, doing it again this year. Everyone seems to be liking it. We're showing all sorts of different strategies and, just thought processes, on going through a draft and how to build a team this year, right? So one strategy we haven't really, gone through yet is taking starting pitcher early. We've been, doing the exact opposite, and Matt and I have been really loving the teams we've been putting together with waiting on starting pitchers. So I was like, let's flip the script here. I believe I went with the 6th pick and a 5th or 6th pick. I have to double check that. And I went Spencer Strider first. So let's, Matt, can we pull up the draft board here, or my roster rather? And I'll break down the roster real quick. I'll read off my roster. So my full roster is Mitch Garver at catcher, Bryce Harper at first, Nico Horner at second, Alex Bregman at third, O'Neill Cruz at short, Luis Robert as my first outfielder, Evan Carter as my number 2, Jordan Walker as my number 3. I have Marcell Ozuna and Jared Kelenic as my utilities, Spencer Strider as my SP1. Then I have Tarik Skubal. My 2 closers are Craig Kimbrell and Jose Leclerc. Rest of my pitching staff fills out as Bobby Miller, Sonny Gray, Bailey Ober, Tristan McKenzie, Aaron Savale, Nasty Nestor, Christopher Sanchez, and then I have 2 bench bats, which are Brandon Jury and Anthony Rizzo. So I'm not in love with the way this team came out. I'll be honest with you. I personally made a couple mistakes in this draft. There were players available that I passed on that I probably should have took. But my whole thought process here was take Spencer Strider, best starting pitcher. We know what we're going to get with him, monster numbers. Try and build my rotation around him, and then see how good of, a bats roster I could build. My strategy had been for, all of my drafts so far is the first 4 or 5 rounds, go heavy with the bats, then build my rotation after that. So, did I do that, or was that you?
Yeah,
I apologize.
You.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. All right. So, with this team, once again, heavy starting pitcher strategy here. Spencer Strider went in the first. Then after that, I went Harper. I have to pull up my exact draft order here, so I have it correct, and I'm not just shooting that off the hip. Yeah, so I got Strider in the first, Harper in the second. Then I went Luis Robert, O'Neill Cruz. Then I tapped back into starting pitcher with Skubal in the 5th, Horner in the 6th, Bregman in the 7th, Bobby Miller in the 8th. Then I took Evan Carter and Jordan Walker. Sonny Gray, Ozuna, Kimbrell, Ober, Leclerc, McKenzie, Savale, Garver, Cortez, Kelenic, Sanchez, Jury, Rizzo. That was my draft order. If I could go back and, maybe do things a little bit differently, it's tough because I do think I built a balanced team here. I think there's, a lot of home runs, there's a lot of steals, there's a lot of guys hitting in good lineups, a mix of young and old. But my biggest takeaway from, doing this strategy is you kind of miss a big outfielder. I love Marcell Ozuna, and I think Marcell Ozuna is going to be very, very good. So he might wind up taking the place of an Evan Carter or a Jordan Walker, but your outfield really takes a hit here. I'm sure if I went through some of these other teams, once again, this is a mock draft, I just did on Fantasy Pros. So if I look through some of these other teams, I'm sure some of these outfields are going to be a lot better than mine. And that's my takeaway, because in that first round, you could have taken, I could have taken Aaron Judge, a Betts, a Soto, Tucker. Literally the next 5 picks after I took Strider were literally all outfielders. So I see that being the weak point of going starting pitcher, a little bit earlier than normal. Once again, I do like the team. The rotation, I think, comes out strong. You go with Strider as your ace. You get Skubal, who I think does have a lot of upside, especially pitching in Detroit. Great ballpark to pitch in, has showed us, has elite stuff. Really, really like what the young kid brings to the table. Bobby Miller, that's a tough one. The Dodgers are going to go 6-man. I'm sure there's going to be times where guys are in and out of the rotation. But Bobby Miller just has elite stuff, 4 elite pitches. I really love what he brings to the table. I think he has, a chance to take a step to next level, could be a top 20 starting pitcher this year. Then I liked it. I took a couple, what if I like to call our rotation stabilizers. I know I've been using that term a lot recently. Sonny Gray, kind of, older, you know what you're going to get. Solid ERA, solid whip, around a K per 9. I think he pitches very well for the Cardinals. Bailey Ober, I think he's on his way to be a rotation stabilizer. We kind of know, what we're going to get from him. He had a very strong year last year, still fairly young. I don't think there's another level here for Bailey Ober. I don't think he's going to be a crazy pitcher, but hey, top 35. 40 starting pitcher. I think that's great. He's going around. What do I have him as my SP5? Would prefer him as my SP6, but I had to supplement a little bit here in this kind of draft. Trying out a new strategy and, had to pay up a little bit for Ober, which I did. And then once again, the rest of the rotation, I know there's a lot of question marks here, but I've been drafting these guys everywhere, and I know Matt loves them as well. Tristan McKenzie coming off the injury, Nasty Nestor too. Both guys that have been elite before. I think they get back to normal. They have good stuff. I don't think the stuff fell off a cliff. I think it was just the injuries with them last year. Savale, give him a full year in Tampa. I think he's going to be fine. And then off the bench, maybe I would change my 2 bench players here, my bats. I did this late last night. I was a little bit tired. I went with Drury because my strategy is always have a guy on your bench that's a Swiss Army knife that has multiple position eligibility. I know Drury has a lot of different positional eligibility, especially on Yahoo, where they've gotten better over the years, but they like to leave a little bit of extra room eligibility for people. And then Rizzo, I really just love Anthony Rizzo, especially at the last pick of your draft. I don't think you can go wrong at all with a guy that has a lot of power in a good lineup. Last year injuries were really the only thing that held him back. But that's my take on the team. That's the strategy that I employed. Real quick, we're going to hit you guys with a quick ad, and then Matt's going to jump back in and just tear this draft apart.
Yeah, buddy. And I got a lot of questions coming up in this next round. So we'll be right back right after this.
And guys, go for it, brother. Sorry.
Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, and exclusive props and more. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook, a partner of the NBA. Locked On has launched its first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel. Also, guys, got another awesome one. Introducing Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Dive into this offseason with Dom and I as we provide you with tiered rankings with over 100 outfielders and starting pitchers, prospect insight, sleepers, breakout, busts, and personalized draft grades. Have burning questions? We've got the answers. As the season unfolds, rely on us for our dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up alerts, injury actions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where your path to victory begins. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience. And if you really want to have fun this season, if you join the Subtext, you might as well drop us a 5-star rating and review on Apple and send us a screenshot on there. It'll get you a lottery entry to possibly get into our elite listener league. One might as well do the other. And I'm telling you guys, you will not fail. If you look at everybody's comments from the show, and I'm not tooting my own horn, this is what other people are saying, we help them progress through their league and win their league. In a lot of cases, if you check the comments, check the reviews, we get you there. And this is a way to take it to the next level. So please join us on Subtext and have a good time with us. It's a great, great, great place. Dom, you got anything to add on that, or we're ready to rock?
You pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I did have something I was going to say, but it totally slipped my mind. But let's just keep rocking, brother.
I bet. So we're gonna get moving here. So Dom, overall, I'm looking at the team, and there is a few picks I'm kind of like not really happy about. There's a few that I'm like, okay, I can see that because you did do a lot of risky things in this draft as well. But I'm breaking down the team, and I'm like, okay, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of this? Well, you have a whole bunch of stolen bases. And I'm looking at this, and the power is kind of like mid-tier, in my opinion, right? So you have O'Neal Cruz, you have Bryce Harper, and you have Marcell Ozuna. Those are your like really big ones. And then if Mitch Garver decides to play a full season, I think he'll be able to contribute in the power. Now, Luis Roberts did get 35 last year. I want to see it happen again, which I think it's possible. So we'll throw him in the mix. Evan Carter is still TBD. He still might only get about 25 home runs at the max. And obviously his ceiling, his upside could be 30 to 35, in my opinion. Jordan Walker wasn't really able to get the ground running, but I think that was a little bit more of, an organization move, but he may only finish with like 25. But like ultimately, like you look at other teams that could be, that are possibly drafting, and they don't have power holes in their lineup, such as like a Nico Horner, even a Bregman. You kind of know what he's going to get, 22 to 25 home runs, which isn't atrocious, but like, especially with third base, you usually can find a guy that can really break all limits and, get you more home runs in that position along with your outfield. So like, those are where I find like the biggest holes in your batting. Other than that, like, there is some things I like about this too. One, you won't have to worry about stolen bases between Roberts, O'Neal Cruz, and Nico Horner. Nico Horner could probably get you 70 right there. And if Jordan Walker does what I think he's going to do, he's going to contribute anywhere from 20 to 30 stolen bases as well. That guy can run. He has really great sprint speed. Not like a Corbin Carroll high percentile guy, but still has excellent speed. So like Jordan Walker can contribute in that. And plus with the larger stolen bases, we saw just an influx of stolen bases, which is the exact opposite reason why I would never draft Nico Horner where you drafted him. I'm going to skip to that one first. So where did I see him? Okay. So Nico Horner here, you picked him in the, let's see here real quick. I want to get
it was the sixth, right?
Sixth round. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of wouldn't construct my team like that, just because in the 6th round, I don't think I'm picking a stolen base specialist. And that's really what he is. He's going to contribute in batting average, stolen bases, and maybe runs. And with honestly the way and state of that team, it's just like a little bit more, ambiguous in my saying of what his run production could be. So I'm just like this on the fence with him. And I'm like, okay, there's other options I would have went, like Josh Lowe, for instance, right? Because the draft is heading in that direction. No, it's not. But I would even bolster up my outfield, and I would have probably grabbed like a Christian Yelich, who went right after him. I would have grabbed even a better pitcher, like, I don't know, Blake Snell, which then leads me to my next point. And that would be, instead of picking Skubal in the round before, it would have been Blake Snell. Or I just would have waited, and I actually would have scooped up Kyle Schwarber to get the more power into my lineup, even though it would have hurt my batting average. But I feel as a whole with your team, you could have got away with drafting Kyle Schwarber. And then you could have tapped back in and got Blake Snell. So like there is a few other things that just like kind of throw me off in that aspect. Also too, let's just now switch off from Nico Horner and let's stay on, Tarik Skubal, right? Like you passed on Aaron Nola, Max Fried, Logan Webb, um, Freddie Peralta, Blake Snell, which I find is the most atrocious one out of all, and even Senga. I know you're high on Skubal, but Skubal still I don't even think is a top 12 pitcher for you, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's not. I will say this: if I could go back, I probably would have played it like this. I would have took Skubal where I took him, and then instead of taking Horner there, I would have took Snell. If I could go back and do it again, that's how I would have went Skubal, Snell, and then I would have waited at second base and probably took my boy Bryson Stott later on.
So yeah, I see that, and I mean I can understand that, but at the same time, I'm also looking at I pulled up your rankings. See, use
Yeah,
his
yeah,
stuff against him, guys.
yeah. No, I
Ah,
know.
and you know what? It's funny. You look at Dom's rankings. I'm not going to read them off. You have to find that out on subtext. But what I will say is, he has Kodai Senga higher than him, and he went after.
Yeah.
He has Freddie Peralta higher. He went after. He has he has Pablo Lopez, who I also think went after, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think he went before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have the whole draft board up on the screen. But, essentially I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, Dom, you could have had one of your higher end pitchers that you ranked higher
Yeah.
versus Skubal. And honestly, I wouldn't have been mad if you would have picked any of those guys where you picked Skubal and then played the ADP game to possibly get him in that next round. And I wouldn't be critiquing as much. And yes, it was it's more of like I'm nitpicking because you could have had both.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, you look at it and you played a truly hard ADP game because, there's a chance Blake Snell wasn't coming back. And that is one of the scarier things with that. So I would have solidified. And then if I wanted to have him, I wanted to have the upside play of where, the potential ceiling of Skubal. Yeah, I would have then picked him up instead of Nico Horner. Now let's move on. There's another one I have questions about, and that is the Bobby Miller pick. So you already went pretty risky in my opinion by, going Spencer Strider first, then Tarik Skubal, and then instead of giving yourself a little bit more of like a little, I guess what I want to say is a roster stabilizer, you went and picked Bobby Miller instead of even a Jesus Luzardo, who is available in the next round, a Kyle Bradish, who is available in the next round, and you went Bobby Miller. Now that's another upside play. You know, Skubal, I think, is great, but when you're picking him that high and he's your pitcher too, you need somebody that's going to be able to balance it out. And both of those guys, I feel, have way more upside in terms of, one, output, and two, being a steadier floor. So, like, those are the guys I probably would have paired to then make up for, I don't want to say mistake, but the construction that you decided to go with. And that would have made me feel a lot better about that Skubal pick as well. Even though passing on Blake Snell is like, are you drinking? But, anyway. And then, for the rest of the roster, I mean, I'm really not like atrociously mad. I'm going to bring back up the full team. But, like, you know, I'm not really upset at any other pick by that because you did a decent job. But the other thing is, by picking Spencer Strider in the first round, I feel that you left outfield like a massive hole.
Oh yeah, I think I ran through that whole point earlier, and
Yeah.
then this was just this mock draft specifically was for this episode. I did want, as I said earlier, I kind of just wanted to play the early starting pitcher role and kind of see how the team construction went. And honestly, it
Mhm.
wasn't as bad as I thought I was going to be.
Like, I'm not mad if, like, you're trying to like scoop him up where his ADP is around 9 through 12, truthfully. Because at that point, though, you can come back around and possibly, scoop up like a Jordan Alvarez or something and still have like, a nice key cog in your outfield. But like that high is pretty outrageous, but it's not
I
like it
agree.
won't be
I agree.
done come draft season. Like, and I don't care. It's interchangeable between him and Cole, in my opinion. So like it is what it is. But Strider that high, any pitcher this high, I feel like you're passing on some serious outfielder. And honestly, I'm going to talk about it in next week. I'm going to let you know. I've been doing a lot of drafts out of the third hole where I've been ending up with a lot of Bobby Witt, and I don't like that either, truthfully. And we'll get into that in another mock draft. I just feel like in the first round, you got to walk away with an outfielder. So, you know, overall, Dom, it's a decent team. There's a lot of room for improvement. You don't win your league at the draft, but you
Yeah.
damn sure didn't lose it either. So the way we play fantasy baseball, you totally would have still been able to come away
Yeah.
with a nice team and probably win this league as long as I wasn't in it. But anyway, we'll be right back. We're gonna both give a little bit more breakdown. Dom's gonna be able to rebuttal, and on top of that, we'll give you a grade on what we think this team is actually at. But before that, we got an ad for you.
Guys, and we're talking about our pals at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right. With that being said, guys, we're gonna hop into the last, final takes on this mock draft. As Matt said, well, let's give it a quick grade. Honestly, in my opinion, I'd give this team a B plus. I think honestly, I did implore the early starting pitcher strategy with Strider. Didn't really love the way that my rotation played out. I honestly think this year you do really want to focus on hitting. You do really want to focus on hitting. Some spots rather than others are easier to draft from. I didn't hate drafting from the 5 spot, but I haven't really done it a lot this year, so I kind of wound up with a lot of different players I wouldn't normally take. But once again, B plus this team. I think the real weak point is that the rotation actually does still wind up being kind of questionable. You have a couple of injury prone guys. Yeah, you got the Bobby Miller and Skubal as the 2-3. I do love Sonny Gray, do love Bailey Ober, but a couple of guys with question marks. And then one other last thing that I would have changed, I think I mentioned it already. I think I would have maybe changed my bench players in Jury and Rizzo. Even though I do love Rizzo, might have tried to find a different Swiss Army knife type of guy. But honestly, I think this is a team you can go into the year with, and you could honestly you can contend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give it a C plus. Not trying to be mean.
No, that's fair.
Um, you know, you did get some stabilizers, like I said, with Alex Bregman and Bryce Harper and Luis Robert and Ozuna, in my opinion. But as I explained at the top of the show in the last segment, there was a little bit of too much of either a specialist or too many upside plays. And then with your rotation, which I really didn't break down outside of Strider and Skubal and Bobby Miller, you get down there after the roughness of those 2 picks, and even your closers, like I love Krimble and Leclerc, but you know they're not the most solidifying, especially when you look at your rotation as a whole, especially with having Skubal and Miller on that team. And you know you want to get, at least I feel, with this kind of rotation, you might want to get a little bit more of a higher end closer in there, maybe like a top like 10 or 9 closer, and kind of, get a little bit more shirt up on the saves department. And I would have drafted a third, closer, just to kind of give me another edge, since, I went very risky with that rotation. So if I'm not winning Ks or if I'm not winning ERA, I'm able to sneak out and not, and possibly pull out saves every week just as a backup to kind of stabilize the rotation. Your bench, not for nothing, I have a problem with Drury, but I mean, that's to each his own. Guys that are at your bottom of your bench anyway normally are on the waiver wire by week 2.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so like I'm not going to nitpick that. Yeah, there's some higher like lottery tickets is what I like to call them that would have been available around that time, but I can't get mad of it. Like, to be honest, I just would have swapped him out for Chris Bryant because he's pretty much free 99, and Chris Bryant going around right now, if he's even able to play 300 at bats coming off your bench, like, I mean, that's pretty much fantasy gold. And if he somehow decides to play better, stay healthy, I mean, it's a serious free 99 pick that could possibly, give your lineup exactly what it's missing, truthfully, too. Like, that would have been the upside play to really fill your power hole, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
I think Rizzo and Bryant have similar power. I think they're both on a good year, 30 home run upside.
yeah, on a good year, but the likelihood of Rizzo doing it versus Chris Bryant, I think.
I actually think Rizzo has better chance to do it than Bryant. I just don't think Bryant stays healthy. Even though it's
Well,
my dog, love him, but
that's the only thing. That's why he's free. And
yeah.
same thing with Rizzo. Rizzo is old man Sanders at this point, where Bryant is, thinking about retirement homes, whereas Rizzo's like, a stapled part of the community, probably runs a couple clubs.
Yeah, come on,
So
he would have had a great year last year if he didn't get hurt.
right, and they forgot to give him his senile medicine. But anyway, um, you know, it's one of those things too, and I mean, like, I can't say hitting in Yankee Stadium is any better than hitting in Coors, don't get me wrong, but that Coors factor does give a little plus. Plus, where Chris Bryant's gonna be hitting the lineup versus where Rizzo's gonna be hitting the lineup is a little bit more of a stat bolster as well. So, like, it just between those two, that is just my pick. But again, it's a crapshoot, and you probably still could drop Rizzo after your draft and probably still go pick up Chris Bryant. So,
Yeah, if you truly wanted to, I think most cases.
yeah,
I don't know Bryant's ADP off the top of my head, but I don't think he's going too high.
I think it's like 400 if I'm not mistaken. So, like, it's free.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't blame him. Everybody got burned for the last 2 years, so, like, it is what
Yeah,
it is.
nah, it's
But I mean, now let me go on a little positive note too. I love your, 2 out of your 3, bench arms. Aaron Savali and Nestor Cortez. Bounce back for Nestor Cortez, I think, is imminent. Aaron Savali is, our guilty pleasure, but also a guy that I think is going to be fantastic year 2 on Tampa.
I
And
think he has a Zach Eflin type year, man. Just I think Tampa helps him figure it out.
well, the thing is, I think he's better than Eflin, and I think, like, his talent is legitimate, and Aaron Savali getting the Tampa Bay Rays boost, I think, is actually, like, a serious, serious investment in him, and him going this cheap now isn't gonna be next year. And I already have him ranked that way as a top 40 pitcher. I think he's, like, maybe 36th or 34th pitcher, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, Aaron Savali is somebody that, like, I'm targeting everywhere. It's like my first or second arm on my bench. Um, so, like, solid job there. The Christopher Sanchez, great upside play. Somebody that also could be on waiver wires after a month, or somebody that could be a key cog of the rotation. But again, the price is whatever. I mean, you're not going to get somebody that's going to be super reliable anyway at this point in the draft. So, might as well plant your flag and, get a scratch off. So, I mean, ultimately, I think you did a great job. And I love the Kelnick pick as well. I've been drafting him everywhere. I love the Atlanta landing spot. So, dude, I mean, like I said, C plus, but, a couple waiver wire pickups, and this team is, homebound for let's try and beat everybody up week in and week out, which we do here.
Yeah, exactly. So you go, and as Matt said earlier, you don't win your league in draft day, but you got to make sure you don't lose it on draft day either. And then this is just kind of an example of a team that you can go in with and potentially, do some damage. One last thing I do want to say is I'm actually pretty high on Kimbrel and Leclerc. I know you were talking about, that you're maybe not super. Actually, I have Kimbrel as I think my 11th and Leclerc as my 14th closer, or as 13th closer, so 11 and 13, both on great teams. Think they're both going to get a lot of saves. And one thing I always do is if I go into the year with only 2 closers, I'm always trying to be on the waiver wire to, make sure you get that first next guy up. Somebody gets hurt or there's just a change of guard, somebody's not good. So big thing going after your draft, make sure you're ready to, just be a great manager on the waiver wire.
And I just want to hop back in. It's not that I'm not a fan,
Of
because
course.
if you notice a lot of the mock drafts we broke down over the last 2 weeks, I ended up with those 2 specifically because of their price. It's just based off of your construction. I said you should have grabbed, a top 10 closer and a lower end
Well,
of the top
that's what I'm
10.
saying. I
Yeah.
have them as almost top 10 closers. So that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. The one thing about Leclerc is he could start the season with them, and then he's one of those guys that are easily replaceable. So, like, he's high risk, high reward. He's on a great team that can provide you a lot of saves, but at the same time could lose his job after, May. So,
It's
either
possible.
whether it's based off performance or based off of them just wanting to solidify with a little bit more stronger name, because they're going to want to repeat what they did last year. So I could see Leclerc on the outs, but I'm drafting him anyway because, like Dom said, there's always a gem or two that ends up flying on the you find on the waiver wire. But anyway, it is what it is. But Dom, if you got nothing else, I think we should get out of here, wrap up, and then we'll see
Yeah.
everybody tomorrow.
I just like Leclerc a lot. He brought them to the promised land last year, close for them a lot over the last 2 years. And there's a lot of people that back the sentiment that you're stating, but I'm kind of on the other side of the fence where I really think Leclerc could kind of take this role and run away with it. But guys, that's all for us today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And special shout out to our everydayers and new listeners. Guys, make sure you're on the lookout for a new episode tomorrow. But until then, see you.
Peace.